Y'all might remember when Latifah Faisal, Story County, Iowa Supervisor, virtue signaled by telling everybody she's volunteering in a Black Lives Matter march in Des Moines. I asked her, see links in the video description, I asked her, when you were down there, did you talk about all the black-on-black homicide? Did you talk about all the black children who grow up without a daddy? See, I don't think Latifah Faisal's actually, I don't think she's very bright. She's kind of a follower. She's not a leader. So she just kind of goes with the flow. I mean, granted, she's not going to come up with something, you know, outside of the Democrat orthodoxy. It's not like she's going to, you know, I don't think she can think for herself much. She's like a ship without a rudder, but somebody's pulling her along. Anyways, you might remember that she was virtue signaling. I'm volunteering at a Black Lives Matter march. I'm not racist. Look, I care for black people. She wants you to know that Black Lives Matter, and they're a minority, and the reason they're killing each other in the streets so much, especially in Democrat cities, if you want to debate that with me, Latifah Faisal, or any of your vaunted sheep, I'm game. I'll make short work of them, period. You know it, I know it, and everybody else knows it too. But the most violent cities in America vote Democrat, and where most of the black-on-black homicide is occurring is in cities that has been run into the ground by your party. Asians are also a minority. Let's look at some data from them. But here's what I wrote down. This is I've covered this before, from 2008 to 2019, and she will not acknowledge this. If she ever acknowledges this, her entire paradigm comes crashing down. From 2008 to 2019, blacks averaged 37.99% of all arrestees for violent crime. If we assume, and this isn't gratuitously, because men are typically 75% of the arrestees for violent crime and 80% of the arrestees for homicide. Now, do people ever say, dang, the police are biased? I think it's misandrist. Was that the word? That's the opposite of misogynist. A misogynist hates women. A misandrist hates men. Are the police misandrist because they're letting all these violent women off the hook? They're zeroing in on evil men. No, men just tend to commit more violent crime. Then, if you take this a step further, and this is what they won't do, which men? Well, it tends to be black men the majority of the time. Blacks were 75% of the arrestees, 37.99% of the arrestees for violent crime from 2008 to 2019. If we assume that 75% of the black arrestees for violent crime are black men, then that means black men, there were 4,807,049 arrests for violent crime in that time frame. Black men were 28.53% of all arrestees for violent crime 2008 to 2019. That means a segment of the population that is 6.6% of the entire U.S. population is effectively committing 28.53% of the violent crime, more than a quarter of it. Of the 105,970 arrestees for murder from 2008 to 2019, 51.01% of the arrestees were black. That's disproportionate. From 2008 to 2020, black men were 43.866% of all expanded homicide data victims. This is where the FBI has data on the race and gender of the victim. Black men from 2008 to 2020 were 43.866% of all homicide victims where the FBI has expanded data. Remember, black men are 6.6% of the entire U.S. population, and they're typically 44% of homicide victims. Why is that, Latifah Faisal? Do those black lives matter, or just the ones killed by police? Because far, far, far more young black men, whether they're nefarious individuals, drug dealers or not, are killed by other black men. How about Asians? They're a minority, Latifah Faisal. Do Asian lives matter? Why are Asian men earning so much more than black men and any other? I identify as Asian now, by the way, just in case anybody's wondering. Yes, I do. I identify as Asian, definitely. Asians are a minority. How come, Latifah Faisal, Asian men earn so much more than black men? How come Asians aren't slaughtering Asians in the hood? Why is that? Latifah Faisal, and maybe, I don't know if this will hit home on you too much here, since you like to spout off about your personal life on Facebook. Do you think maybe part of the reason you struggled when you were so much younger was because of your own irresponsibility and foolish choices? The reason a lot of black people grow up poor is there's no daddy. And don't blame me for that. You like to whine and virtue signal, but it's not my fault. There's a lot of young black women that need to be told, keep your legs closed until you're married. I know that sounds mean. Oh, that's mean. No, a little tough love is in order. But how about Asians? Asians are 4.8% of the population in 2010 and 5.9% in 2020. From 2008 to 2020, Asians averaged 1.357% of all arrestees for violent crime. Do you think that's because most of them had a dad? And of all the arrestees for murder / non-negligent manslaughter from 2008 to 2020, only 1.15% of the arrestees were Asian. Do you think the cops are ignoring Asian crime to focus on blacks? And if they just quit focusing on black folks and attacking black folks, that you'd see the number of arrests for Asians double, triple. How come Asians are arrested for violent crimes at a much, much lower volume than blacks, Latifah Faisal? Why is that? Because they're a minority. A lot of them, there's a lot of people alive today who could say, hey, I remember when my parents were put in internment camps by FDR. But they don't sit around whining about that. So Latifah Faisal, do you think it's possible that the reason Asians are doing so much better in school and doing so much better in life, and Asian men are out-earning everyone, and many Asian immigrants, this is immigration by merit. You don't want this. You want immigration without merit. You want people who will come over the border and don't work because those are your voters. You don't want immigration by merit, and a lot of these Asians are very meritorious. That's why they're not killing each other in the hood. That's why they're doing well in school. That's why they're not getting... Name me one city, Latifah Faisal, where there's the Asian on Asian homicide rate is much higher. Say if they're 3% of the population, let's say find me a city where 10% of the homicides are Asians and 10% of the people arrested for homicide are Asian. Find it. And another challenge for you, Latifah Faisal, find me any state where the whitest pro-Trump counties have a higher homicide rate. 60% is the threshold I use. 60% of the vote. Find me any state. I know this will keep you busy. I don't think you have the brain power to do it anyway. Maybe someone will do it for you. Find me any state where the whitest pro-Trump counties have higher homicide rates than the most pro-Biden Hillary counties, and you have to show the population too. You know, if you find a couple counties and that are 1% of the state's population and they're Republican, you say, "Oh, look, they got a higher homicide rate." You have to show the population too, so we can see what percentage of the state population it is. I mean, don't find me a backwater, podunk, rural county in Texas with 500 people that had 3 homicides in 1 year and say, "Oh, look at that." Show your work, dummy. So let's wrap this up. Find me any state where the whitest pro-Trump counties have homicide rates higher than the most pro-Biden and pro-Hillary counties. I use 3-year blocks. You can't cherry pick 1 year. You have to do it in 3-year blocks. Have a higher homicide rate than those pro-Biden Hillary counties, a higher homicide rate than the state average of whatever state you pick, and a higher homicide rate than the national average. You won't find one because I've done a lot of digging. I did a lot of digging on Texas's data. How come Asians are hardly ever arrested in Texas? They're less than 1% of all the arrestees for violent crime and homicide, yet they're over 5% of the population there. And why are blacks several times, they're what, 13.2% of the population? Their arrest rates are more than 3 times that. They're about 40% of the arrestees. Why is that, Latifah Faisal? Is it a conspiracy by the police? Is it a conspiracy by the white man? Or maybe just some people aren't very responsible. I think you play to the lowest common denominator. And again, I have to emphasize, this lady wants as many illegal aliens dumped in Iowa and everywhere else as possible. I'll leave a link to that video too. Right? She wants these open borders. She wants people flowing in. She wants to sign them up to vote and sign them up for welfare. And if you think, excuse me, we have spending issues now, wait till these people get on the dole. And I have the data to prove that. Have a nice day and don't thank me now. And good luck, Latifah Faisal, in taking my challenge. You'll need it.